In the heat of Lagos, where ambition rose with the morning sun and fell with the evening fog, there worked a man named Emeka Obi. Emeka, as everyone called him. He was not a tall man, nor a man of great physical presence, but there was something in the steadiness of his eyes and the quiet certainty of his handshake that made people instinctively trust him. Emeka had worked in the Federal Ministry of Works for 11 years. He was a procurement officer, a position that, in the language of Lagos, was understood to be a position of opportunity. In that office, contracts were signed, money moved, and men grew fat. But Emeka remained lean, not just in body, but in conscience. Every contract that passed through his desk was evaluated on merit. Every vendor who came before him was assessed on quality and price. Not a single naira passed under the table. His colleagues watched him with a mixture of admiration and bewilderment. They called him Holy Emeka, not entirely as a compliment. In their world, a man who refused what was freely offered was not virtuous, he was simply difficult. It was a Tuesday in October when Mr. Bassi walked in. He was a contractor from Port Harcourt, a heavy man and a tailored agbada, carrying a briefcase that he set on Emeka's desk with a quiet thud. He spoke in the careful, measured tones of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. "Mr. Emeka," he said, sliding the briefcase across the desk, "I have brought something to show my appreciation, a token of goodwill, between men of understanding." Emeka did not touch the briefcase. He looked at it the way a man looks at a beautiful but venomous snake, with recognition, not temptation. He folded his hands on the desk, and when he looked at Mr. Bassi, there was no anger in his eyes, only a tired, deep-rooted resolve. "Mr. Bassi," he said quietly, "I appreciate your visit, but your bid will be evaluated the same way every other bid is evaluated, on its merits. Please take your briefcase when you go." Mr. Bassi left without the contract. He also left without his briefcase until Emeka's secretary chased him down the hallway to return it. But he did not leave without bitterness. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Bassi made calls. Men spoke in closed offices. A file was reviewed. A report was written. And 3 months later, Emeka received a letter from Human Resources informing him that his position had been restructured. He was given 2 weeks of notice and a handshake that meant nothing. 7 years after Emeka's dismissal, a delegation arrived in Oguta. They came in 2 vehicles, clean, government-plated, and they asked at the motor park for a man named Emeka Obi. The people directed them without hesitation. The delegation was from the newly established National Integrity and Anti-Corruption Commission, a body set up by the incoming administration in response to years of institutional decay. Its mandate was specific and unusual: to identify individuals across the country who had been dismissed or disadvantaged for refusing to participate in corruption and to offer them positions within the new anti-corruption framework. They had been given names by civil society groups, by former colleagues, by records that, in government offices, never truly disappear. Emeka's name had appeared on 4 separate lists. They found him not in some fine house, but behind the counter of his small shop, adjusting the weights on his scale. He was in a plain shirt, sleeves rolled up, glasses on his nose. When they explained who they were and why they had come, he was quiet for a very long time. One of the delegation later said that she had expected excitement or tears. What she saw instead was something harder to name: a man absorbing a truth that had taken 7 years to arrive and receiving it with the same steady calmness with which he had faced everything else. 3 weeks later, Emeka Obi was appointed Director of Procurement Oversight at the National Integrity and Anti-Corruption Commission. It was not the position he had lost, it was higher. His office now oversaw procurement processes in 12 federal ministries. His team included young officers who came to him eager to learn, not just the rules, but the character behind the rules. He moved to Abuja in a modest flat. He could have taken something larger, the allowance permitted it, but he lived the way he had always lived, within what was his and no more. His office door was always open. He was known to return gifts delivered to his home the same day they arrived, with a handwritten note that said simply, "Thank you, but this is not the way." When journalists interviewed him, they often asked the same question in different ways. "Do you feel vindicated?" His answer never changed. "Vindication was never the point," he would say. "I was not honest because I expected reward. I was honest because I could not look at myself in the mirror and be otherwise. The reward is pleasant, but honesty was never conditional on receiving it." Back in Oguta, the people remembered everything. They remembered the years he had come home without wealth and without shame. They remembered his open accounts at the cooperative. They remembered the students he had taught, some of whom were now engineers and teachers and doctors, carrying in their lives a lesson about measurement and accuracy that they had learned from a man who could have been rich, but chose instead to be right. When news of his appointment reached the town, there was a celebration that lasted 2 days. His mother danced. His father, now very old and walking slowly, was brought to the front of the gathering and said only this: "When a tree is planted straight, no storm can make it forget its roots." The crowd echoed the words in Igbo.
When a tree is planted straight, no storm can make it forget its roots. The crowd echoed the words in Igbo, and the sound of it carried across the lake. Epilogue. The world does not always reward integrity on schedule. Sometimes it takes 7 years, sometimes it takes a lifetime, and sometimes, not often enough, but sometimes, the right people at the right moment go looking for the right man, and they find him behind a counter with honest weights and open books, still being exactly who he always was. The lesson of Emeka Obi is not that honesty will always be rewarded. The lesson is that a man who is honest only because he expects reward is not, in the deepest sense, honest at all. Real integrity is what remains when every incentive to be good has been stripped away. When you have been fired, humiliated, returned home with nothing, and still, when the scale is placed before you, you set it true. That is the price of integrity, and it is also, in the end, its own reward.